let's get going. So tonight's webinar is about water. Topic water, our lives depend on it. And we'll be discussing many issues around water, especially local issues around water and local water districts. So I'm very interested to learn from Ray today. Water for our work is very close to our hearts and very important to the work we do at the Banning Ranch Conservancy. You can see here a map of the Randall Preserve, the newly preserved land, used to be called Banning Ranch. And it's connected to all these other open lands along the Santa Ana River estuary. So we're calling this the coastal corridor of the Santa Ana River. This is the intertidal zone of the Santa Ana River, where the tidewaters from the Pacific Ocean rise and go inland and create a unique set of habitats. And these different habitats at different elevations with different plant and animal species are all working together. They all rely on healthy water, both fresh water coming downstream and salt water coming upstream to thrive. And so as we look to preserve this land moving forward, we're going to be keenly watching the water quality, water retention, water behavior on these lands, and advocate for a healthier system. And I like to give context for what we're looking at here. The Santa Ana River estuary mouth here, this is about 1,000 acres outlined of land. So it sounds like a lot, and it is a lot to look at with your eye, but it's actually a very small little blip on the map. And so this is a map of the whole watershed that, oh, maybe I've got somebody else. Okay, I think we're good. This is a map of the whole watershed of the Santa Ana River. And in the top right corner, that's around Big Bear, Angeles Oaks area. That's considered the headwaters of the Santa Ana River. But you can see all these other drainages coming into the Santa Ana River watershed. This is, from my understanding, the largest watershed in Southern California. And so, and from my understanding also, these drainages move through about 6 million people's dwellings. And so you can imagine the amount of potential toxic and garbage waste being dumped into the watershed and making its way downstream. So our area of concern here is the last line of defense from all of this water coming down and entering the Pacific Ocean and impacting our coastal habitats. So this is very, very close to our hearts, this topic. So I'm very interested to hear from Ray. So here's Ray. This is Ray. Is it Hiemstra? Hiemstra? I never asked. Hiemstra. I'll say Hiemstra. He's nodding his head. Ray has spent the last 23 years at Orange County Coastkeeper, an awesome nonprofit in our area, working to preserve, protect, and restore coastal and inland water quality and habitat. He's the Associate Director of Policy and Projects. His work includes water quality advocacy, policy development, marine protected areas, species and habitat restoration, and water and sediment monitoring. Ray is a member of numerous committees and work groups, including the California Water Monitoring Council and Newport Bay Management Committee. He is a lifelong resident of Orange County and spends his spare time working with community groups or outdoors with his family and friends. So Ray, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Thank you for sharing your knowledge I'm going to give you control now of the slides, and you can go ahead.
Great. Thank you, Paul, and everybody here tonight for the opportunity to talk to you about water. It's one of my favorite subjects, and it's really the focus of Orange County Coastkeeper's work. So our mission statement is to protect swimmable, drinkable, and fishable water and promote water resilience throughout the region. If that sounds familiar, that's because the fishable, swimmable, drinkable part is right out of the Federal Clean Water Act. So water is super important, and it's something that everything needs. We do a number of different things at Coastkeeper. So I'm going to kind of point at the pictures here. So we do research work. So that's water monitoring and habitat monitoring. Over here is advocacy, which is what we're doing tonight. That's educating and activating the public on important issues. We do education. We take school groups out and they do water testing and learn about watersheds. This photo here is restoration. We have eelgrass and oyster restoration that we're doing in Newport Bay. And this last photo here on the right is a picture of some bad pollution coming off of a site. And we have 3 attorneys that enforce the Clean Water Act so that we actively go after big polluters to make sure that they clean up their act. What I'm talking about today is water, which is a huge subject. There's 4 different types of water that we basically divided up into. Drinking water, that which comes out of your tap. Surface water, which includes our rivers, creeks, and ocean. Groundwater, which is, as it sounds like, is underground. And that's a super important resource also. And then wastewater, which is basically our sewage water. So all of these are big, expensive issues with lots of people working on them. And that's because water is so critically important to us. So what is important about clean water? Well, first of all, public health. So we're very lucky in the United States in general to have clean water. There's places in California and throughout the nation that have water quality issues, and we hear about that sometimes. But overall, we can depend on the water that comes out of our tap to be clean and safe for us to drink. And that's a big deal because a lot of people throughout the world don't have that luxury. And it's used for drinking, food production, washing our hands, taking showers, and then recreation. So the environment also needs clean water. So our aquatic ecosystems, both freshwater and ocean water, and the species that live in them, all depend on clean water and enough water for them to live in. It's also a huge part of our economy. There's a reason why the coastal areas of Orange County and California and even the world are the economic drivers. And that's because there's transportation, there's food, there's recreation, there's all those different things that the coast brings to us. And over 80% of the world's population lives within 100 miles of the coast. That's how important it is. What I'm going to start off with talking about is our drinking water, and that's for a reason. For one thing, it's obviously super important, but it's also something that we kind of take for granted in Orange County and in a lot of the United States. So you turn on your tap, the water comes out. It's it's clean and it's relatively inexpensive. So that's not something that people give a lot of thought in general, but a lot of thought and a huge amount of money goes into our water. So this infographic right here talks about where our water comes from. So we've got our imported water up here, and I'll talk a little bit about that more. The water comes from Northern California, the California Delta, and then also from the Colorado River. So that makes up about 50% of Orange County's water supply. The other part comes from our Santa Ana River, which is most people look at it and they don't think, well, that's not much of a river. There's not much water there. But we actually get quite a bit of our water in Orange County from the Santa Ana River. And then our groundwater basin is also very important and represents the other 50% of our groundwater, of our water supply. So overall in Orange County, about 50% imported and about 50% from groundwater, with the Santa Ana River contributing to that groundwater. So what's a water district and why should you care? Well, they're actually very important organizations, and I wouldn't be surprised if you didn't know who your water district was, or what they really do. So their task is to supply our water needs to the community. And that's very important because, we all want clean, available water. And as I mentioned, and I'll talk a little bit more about, it takes a lot of effort to make that happen. Each organization has a definite geographic boundary. So they serve a particular area. Sometimes that's a city. Sometimes that's a larger area making up several cities. And then the source is where the water comes from. So we get, as I mentioned, we get 50% of our water from imported water, and the other is from groundwater. But there's 30 water agencies in Orange County that sell water directly to customers. And each one of those agencies has a board of directors. Often they're elected officials. They'll be on your ballot. They're usually right towards the end where not many people pay attention. Either that, or if you're in some cities, it may be your city council. But these elected officials of these agencies make very important decisions about billions of dollars. So the largest water district in Southern California is called the Metropolitan Water District of Southern California. And we shortened that up to the MWD. And this is a public agency that was set up originally to deliver water from the Colorado River. The MWD built the Colorado River Aqueduct and imports the water from the Colorado River through that aqueduct and distributes it to agencies throughout Southern California, from Ventura all the way down to San Diego. They provide an average of 1.7 billion gallons of water a year, and it serves nearly 19 million people. So this is a map of the Metropolitan Water District service area. And as I mentioned, it goes all the way up here from Ventura down to San Diego. So it's a huge service area with a lot of people. And it's a very powerful agency with over 30 board members, representatives from all of these different areas. Now, the Metropolitan Water District brings in water from the Colorado River Aqueduct, and I didn't mention it, but also from the California Aqueduct in Northern California. And then they sell that in Orange County to a middleman known as the Municipal Water District of Orange County. So their only job is to distribute imported water throughout Orange County. So most they just a large portion of our water comes from groundwater, but 50% of it comes from imported water. And MODOC, as we call it, is the one that does that. So they supply that to 27 different agencies over 350 square miles. They don't serve the cities of Fullerton, Santa Ana, and Anaheim because they are original members of the MWD, and they get their imported water directly from MWD without having to go through a middle agency. So again, why is this important? So you have elected officials that are on that MWD board. There are also elected officials that are on your ballot that run the municipal water district of Orange County. And then there's elected officials that run your local retail district. So here is a map of the service area for the MWDOC for MODOC. And these are all the different 27 water agencies. Then you add the cities of Santa Ana, Fullerton, and Anaheim, that's 30, that sell water in Orange County. So this is a big political and industrial operation. There are thousands of people who go to work every day, and their only job is to make sure that you get clean water that's safe to drink. The Orange County Water District manages the groundwater basin in Orange County and runs the groundwater replenishment system, which I'll talk about a little bit more. But this is a different district, so you have the imported water coming in regionally from the MWD, which is then delivered to Orange County from MODOC, the Municipal Water District of Orange County. And then the other half of that water comes from our groundwater basin, and that's the Orange County Water District. Their only job is to maintain that groundwater basin and make sure that that water is available to the different retailers. So they not only manage the groundwater basin, so they make sure that it stays clean, they're testing it, and they're making sure that they only clean water gets pumped out of there. But they also operate the groundwater replenishment system, which is the largest recycled water system in the world. And it takes our sewer water in North and Central Orange County, cleans it up to drinking water standard, and then puts it back into the groundwater basin where it gets filtered again through the aquifer, and then it ends up resupplying our water. So it's very innovative, and it's very cost effective, and it's something that we've won awards from all over the world for the groundwater replenishment system, and it's been a huge benefit to us in this area. So the service area for Orange County Water District is smaller, and that's because they just manage the groundwater basin. So you notice South Orange County, pretty much everything south of Irvine is not in their area. That's because there's no groundwater basin down there. And that's really important because Orange County, when I mentioned about Orange County gets 50% of their water imported and 50% for groundwater, that's not evenly distributed throughout the county. Up here in North Orange County, 75% of the water here in Huntington Beach and Costa Mesa, the areas around the Randall Preserve, that's all groundwater basin. We import very little water here. Down in South Orange County, they have no groundwater basin. They're 90% plus dependent on imported water. So that makes a big difference, because if something happens to that imported water, whether it be the pipeline or the amount of water that can get imported, that makes a really big difference. So now I'm going to talk about what I call the good, the bad, and the ugly of water districts, because not every district is run the same, and not all of our sources of water are the same, and there's important issues that are being addressed. So I'm going to start off with the good. So I mentioned that groundwater replenishment system. Again, this is a world recognized, we've won what the Stockholm Prize for water, which is, think of it as the water equivalent of the Nobel Prize for our groundwater replenishment system. It's been in place for about 15 years now. It's well tested. It runs really well. We've actually expanded it twice, and we're now up to where it provides 130 million gallons a day in North and Central Orange County, that service area for Orange County Water District. We recycle almost 100% of our wastewater. So not only are we getting that water back to drink, but that's water that isn't ending up out in, wastewater that isn't ending up out in the ocean, causing pollution problems out there. So this is a really important project. And I just talked about it being expanded twice. Now I'm going to talk about a bad issue. And this isn't something that's a bad issue with a water district. It's just when I talked about clean water and how important that is something we take very seriously in Orange County and throughout the United States. So our water is constantly monitored. So we have, there's a huge number of tests and things like that that are going on to make sure our water is clean and safe to drink. But there are things that can sneak up on us, and this particular one called PFAS is one of them. So PFAS is actually a class of chemicals. There's about 4,000 different versions of PFAS, and they were considered a miracle chemical. So they were developed in the 30s. They're waterproof. They're very, very rugged. We used it on everything. Anything that you have that is waterproof, stain resistant, anything like that, most likely has PFAS on it. And we still use it to this day. So your nonstick pans, your rain waterproof jacket, all that type of stuff, that's PFAS. So it has a lot of uses, and it's a great product. And we thought for a long time that it was relatively harmless. However, we've been learning more as time goes on, and we've over the past decade, and especially in the past 5 years, we've realized that PFAS are a serious threat to public health. So while we've known this has been in our drinking water for a long time, and we didn't treat for it because we didn't think it was a problem, it turned out that it is. So what's happened is our state and federal government has reacted and changed the water quality standards from, these sound like big numbers, so 40 parts per million down to 14 parts per trillion. So basically we went from PFAS isn't really a problem, we don't need to worry about it, maybe 10 years ago, to now it's a big issue. And we're very concerned about it. And we're spending a lot of money on cleaning up our wells that have been contaminated with it. So I was at an Orange County Water District meeting last night, and they gave an update, and they're working on construction to install PFAS treatment on 30 wells in Orange County. They've completed a lot of that already. And those wells, while they're being constructed, the treatment is being constructed, they've been taken offline. So as soon as we found out that there was an issue with the safety of our water, those wells were taken offline and those treatment systems are being put in. So I want to be clear when we talk about this, that these emerging contaminants and things like that are something we need to keep an eye on, and we are testing and treating those when necessary, but we're not drinking contaminated water. When a problem is found, that gets addressed right away. I drink I drink tap water without a problem at all. So the last slide is what I call the ugly. And what I like to say is that Orange County is home to some of the best water ideas and then some of the craziest water ideas. And the best one that I talked about a lot was the groundwater replenishment system, and the crazy one is Cadiz. And what Cadiz is a project to basically take water from the desert and supply that into Orange County and other places for our water use. The problem is there's no extra water in the desert. I mean, when you think, well, why would we be taking water from the desert? That's a good question. And why would we be taking water from the desert? And but it's one of those things where somebody thinks they can make a lot of money selling water from there, and they own that groundwater basin. So they've been trying to develop this project to import that water from the desert here to Orange County. And who's doing that? So that is a water district called the Santa Margarita Water District, and that's down in South Orange County. So that's why when I talked about, paying attention to your water district and the elected officials, is there is a tendency for some of these water districts, they all have their different personalities, to just try to get as much water as possible at any cost to the environment or in money. And this project is a perfect example of that. So the Cadiz Water Project is something we call a zombie project. They've been trying to get this built for over 20 years. It's almost died a couple times. There's been state legislation, federal action to stop this, and yet it's still alive and they're still trying to sell it. So keep an eye out for more on Cadiz, and hopefully it never gets built. So next I want to go ahead and talk about surface water. So this is the kind of stuff that a lot of us recognize. So the ocean obviously is the biggest body of surface water, and it's home to wildlife. It's a significant source of recreation. It's our food supply. This boat right here is called a purse seiner, and it catches squid and other fish using a net. And fishing is a very important industry and a huge part of our food supply. So we want to keep our ocean clean so that we can use it and enjoy it, the wildlife can, and that it supplies our food. So here's where I want to talk about ocean desalination real quickly, because it's one of those things we get a question a lot. Why don't we just take the salt out of the ocean and drink that? Well, the thing is we can, and we've done it for a long time, but it's a lot more complex and a lot more expensive than most people think it is. If desalinating ocean water was cheap and easy, we would have done it a long time ago. So there's reasons why that's not really happening. In San Diego, they did build the largest desalination plant in the Western Hemisphere, the Carlsbad desalination plant. And it produces about 8% of their water. But it's really, really expensive. And it has resulted in San Diego having some of the highest water rates in all of the United States. It's just that expensive. Santa Barbara is another place where they desalinate water and use it. Again, the expense for this is very, very high. They built a desalination plant in 1980, and after running it for a month, they shut it down. And it was shut down for 20 years till they rebuilt it, and it runs now. And it's a small plant, and it's a very small portion of their drinking water. And then the Doheny desalination plant in South Orange County is the latest proposal for a desalination plant in Orange County. And this one is important in that it actually follows the California Ocean Desalination Policy, which basically says if you're going to do desalination, locate the plant where the water is actually needed, size it to minimize impacts, and then also for the need for the water. So it remains to be seen if Doheny actually gets built, but it is following those directions, and it's using the latest technology. Our surface water, the Santa Ana River got mentioned earlier. The Randall Preserve is right next to the Santa Ana River. And what this is actually, this photo right here, this is the Santa Ana River up in the Big Bear area. So I went fishing up there right before the tropical storm came through and kind of, wiped everything out. So they plant trout up there. It's an important recreation area. It's important to wildlife. And it's also a huge part of our water supply. This picture down here, that's actually San Diego Creek right here in Orange County. This is also a popular fishing area. And then we have native wildlife, an arroyo chub, the speckled dace, the Santa Ana sucker, that are the native fish in these watersheds. And there's a lot of work being done to make sure that they survive and thrive by, again, having clean, abundant water for them, which just makes our lives better too. Wastewater. So this is another really big issue. So number one is it's really expensive. So we all know, I mean, come on, we make waste, so that means we have to do something about it. But these are huge facilities. This one down here is the Irvine Ranch Water District, and we spend these are billion-dollar facilities to treat our wastewater, and so that it can be released. It needs to be very efficient and do a good job. If you think about areas like the Santa Ana River, the Mississippi River, the Colorado River, there are waste treatment plants that discharge into all of those. So these plants have to run very efficiently and clean up that waste very well so that water can be reused by the people downstream safely. So it's an important issue, and it's really expensive. What I have this picture here, these are called biosolids. So when our waste is treated, it creates these solids. Basically, it's the remainder of us that in our sewer water, and that needs to be disposed of. And that ends up being used as fertilizer in some places, or it's taken to landfills and other. And again, it's a very expensive and very complicated thing to deal with. So there's a lot of money that gets put into that. So what overall can you do? And this is really important because, again, I just talked about a lot. I talked about oceans, creeks, drinking water, all these water districts and elected officials. Well, first of all, respect our water. I mean, there's not only is it precious and we need it, we need clean water and enough water to survive. But we need to respect that, what people are doing to get it to us, and then conserve it. So waste of water, in my mind, that's just one of the worst things that you can do. Because what would be worse than importing water all the way from the Colorado River and then just, throwing it out into the street and it runs into the gutter and carries some tire residue into the ocean? That's like the worst possible scenario. So we don't want to waste that water, whether it comes out of our groundwater, whether it's rainwater, or we're importing it from thousands of miles away. And then second of all, find out who your water district is and hold them accountable. They make a lot of decisions. And, a lot of times they're making the right one. Of course, they're charged with keeping us healthy and stuff like that. But there's also districts that are coming up with ideas like that Cadiz idea I mentioned that's pretty crazy. Or yesterday, I actually went and spoke at the Orange County Water District Board meeting, and I had to tell them not to submit a resolution that basically opposed water conservation. I said, what are you thinking? Why would you oppose water conservation? And they were trying to say, well, we think we have plenty of water and we shouldn't have to, conserve water. Well, that's wrong. Everybody needs to conserve water because we shouldn't be wasting a drop. And just because we recycle water at a large rate doesn't mean that we should be able to waste it. And then demand change in water regulation. One of the biggest problems, you hear things about, there's water shortages and this and that, and agriculture versus fisheries and drinking water. It's really our regulations that are in bad shape. There's an old law called the Law of the West. And basically what it says is that the first person to come and use that water, and of course it completely ignores the rights of the tribes and the indigenous people that were here and have been utilizing that water for millennia. But it says the first person that use that water has the right to continue using that amount of water in perpetuity. So, for example, in southeastern California, the Imperial and Coachella water districts were the first districts to take water off the Colorado River. When they built their canal back in the early 1900s, they did such a sloppy job that the canal busted and the water poured out of it into a dry lake that is now the Salton Sea for years, and created the largest inland water body in California. And now that's starting to evaporate. It's got all kinds of environmental problems. And that's a disaster that just keeps on growing on us. And all of that was just because of water waste and this first and right. Those districts down there still have the rights to the majority of the Colorado River water in California. And we need to change that. We need to change the balance between agriculture, fisheries, and drinking water so that water goes where it's needed. And there's no waste. Sometimes you hear stuff about, water gets wasted because it's running out to the ocean. That's not wasted water. That's the water that, for instance, our salmon fishery and other wildlife use to stay alive and maintain our habitats. So there's no such thing as water going out to the ocean being wasted. All of that has a use. We can capture some of that efficiently and use it for drinking water or to recharge our aquifers, but we should never look at water running out to the ocean in general as a waste of our water. So with that, I'm going to go ahead. We're got about 15 minutes left. So this is my contact information. So again, I'm Ray Hiemstra. I'm the Associate Director of Policy and Projects at Orange County Coastkeeper. And this is my contact information. And with that, I will turn it back over to Paul.
Thank you so much, Ray. It's really, really interesting. Thanks everyone also for being here to listen. If you have any questions, you can go ahead and throw them in the Q&A box. And I've got some questions here as well for Ray. Let's see here. So you mentioned that the groundwater replenishment system creates or pulls out potable drinking water, treats it, and so that it's drinkable again. Sounds like a pretty amazing technological feat. What happens with the waste that's left behind in that system?
So that actually does get disposed out of our outfall. So there, it treats it up. One of the things to think about, and that's a great question on a lot of levels. So when I talked about ocean desalination, if you're going to desalinate that, you get about 50% drinkable water and 50% wastewater that goes back to the ocean. And it takes a lot of energy because of all the salts. If you're treating our wastewater, it's actually, there's a lot less stuff in that wastewater than ocean water. So it takes less energy and there's less waste. I'm not sure of the exact proportion of wastewater to drinking water that you get out of it, but it's much higher than ocean desalination. So that's why we would prefer to treat our wastewater, because it takes less energy, which makes it cheaper, and it creates less of that waste stream. And we've got a new law in California. Groundwater replenishment system is what's called indirect potable reuse. So we clean that wastewater up, and then and it's very clean. And then we put it back into our aquifer, and it mixes in there, and then we eventually pump it back out. New regulations have gone into effect, and starting in 2024, water districts have the tools to do what's called direct potable reuse. So that's using the same thing, reverse osmosis. So whether you're ocean desalination, cleaning up wastewater, whatever, it's reverse osmosis. So using that same technology, we could clean up our wastewater, but skip the aquifer and go directly back into our pipes. So for that area of South Orange County that I mentioned that doesn't have an aquifer, they previously weren't able to recycle water. Now with these new regulations, they can. And that's one of those nudges that you need to give your water district, is that they need to start recycling their water too. They're not going to be first, believe it or not. Texas is already doing it. Singapore is already doing it. San Diego's doing not quite direct potable reuse, but they're using a reservoir instead of an aquifer for a project called Pure Water. So this is something whose time has come, and it's a huge wasted resource throughout the state. All of that wastewater we can clean up and use it again.
Very interesting. Okay, another question here. You've mentioned, I really appreciated what you said about, not wasting a drop of water, and that water completing its journey to the ocean is a necessary part of the functioning ecosystem, not just for human use. Water is not just for human use, but it's for the functioning of all life. It's very, very cool to hear you say that, to talk about that topic. Here's a question here. How do we align the fact that we need housing, but water resources are limited?
So this is what I was talking about when we need to change our water regulations and laws. It drives the people at the water district crazy when I say it, but it's true, is that we don't have a water problem. We have a water management problem. So right now we have areas like that Imperial Valley down in the south. They grow important crops, vegetables, lettuce, tomatoes, stuff like that. But they have tended to do that in a very water wasting style. They flood their fields. They do things like that. So these water rights holders that have what are called senior water rights, they have a tendency to treat water very disrespectfully because it's cheap and they have access to a lot of it. And that access is basically irrevocable. So, if we do need to have new housing, and we do have the water available in California for that. And in fact, new housing is really, really efficient. 60% of our water is wasted on landscaping. So obviously we need to have some landscaping. It's not like we don't need any, but we can use a lot less. So the amount being used in your house is very small. And when I mentioned talking at Orange County Water District yesterday, what I was talking about was supporting a new set of state regulations that is going to reduce indoor water use to 42 gallons per person in California. And it will set limits on outdoor water use. So again, it's time for us just to start respecting this resource. And, just because you got some water right back in 1872 doesn't mean that you should be able to hold on to that forever and waste it growing. I got a particular thing against pistachios. Okay. I like pistachios are nice. I like pistachios, but we're growing way too many pistachios in California, and there's better uses for that water.
Great, thank you very much. I have a question here from Armando. He says, many thanks to you for your presentation. If you could, you've mentioned a number of things in this talk that you would like to see, some goals that you have for water in the near and distant future. If you could list 3 or 4 of your top goals quickly, what would they be?
I want to be able to access and safely swim in our rivers and creeks. That's something that's of particular interest to me. In Orange County, we actually have a law against swimming in any county waters, which is all of our creeks and rivers. It's ridiculous, and it's actually illegal under state law, but it would be a very expensive and time-consuming lawsuit to do that. In Riverside County, we actually work throughout the watershed. So I'll be up actually in Riverside County this Saturday at an event. And in that area, I can swim in the Santa Ana River. And it's a beautiful place. The water isn't as clean as I'd like it to be. So we need to clean up our water more. So that's a top goal for me. And then I think another one is just, I want to see a change in our water districts to where they recognize conservation as the cheapest top goal that we should be doing, rather than just constantly trying to find what they call new water.
On that topic, do you have any thoughts on, I think it's a pretty small movement, the primary water sources? Have you heard about this one? Aquifer pressurized water flumes that will fill up aquifers as pressure is released from the crust of the earth, as being an untapped water source for us.
That's a new one to me. I'm going to have to look that up. So
I believe it's called primary water.
Yeah. No, you know what? I mean, their water is such an important resource that I said there is an endless hunt for that, what they call new water. And and now I said there's good ideas and there's bad ideas that come out of that. I haven't heard of that one. I'm interested to learn more.
Here's another question. Is Poseidon dead?
Poseidon itself is dead. That project has had it. Desalination, ocean desalination is not dead. I'd say the most recent project is a new one that uses deep water desalination. There was an article, the Los Virgenes Water District. They serve Malibu and Calabasas. They're calling it the water district to the stars. There was just an article that they are partnering with a new company that is proposing using these deep water desalination pods. It's an interesting concept. They've given a presentation to Coastkeeper. I've seen their thing. Be interesting to see if and how it works. As I said, one of the things about ocean desalination is it's very difficult. So, I'm interested to see how and if that works. And yeah, Poseidon was a bad idea that had its time. I think that one is dead.
A lot of people are celebrating about that.
Yes.
That was a big local
and I just want to say thanks to everyone in Orange County that helped to do that. Because when I talked about those high water rates in San Diego, that's real. We would have spent about $1 billion on that plant. And, everybody should be proud of themselves for saving Orange County from that boondoggle.
Is OC is Orange County Coastkeeper addressing coastal climate impacts like sea level rise at all in their work, or is it primarily policy with water districts, or can you talk about that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we are addressing sea level rise through our restoration programs. We have our oyster and eelgrass restorations are actually part of what's called a living shorelines project. And the idea is it's funded by the state of California. And the idea is to see that if we restore oyster beds in Newport Bay, will they provide natural armoring of the coast help address sea level rise, and also potentially provide a platform for eelgrass to grow on, because as our water gets deeper, eelgrass needs sunlight. So if it gets too deep, the eelgrass can't grow. So this project's now been going on for close to 6 years, and we're getting some data in on that. And our oyster beds are starting to reestablish themselves. So yeah, that's has been our focus. There's lots of issues to deal with with climate change and sea level rise in Orange County, but that's the one we're working on the most.
Very cool. Very cool. It's so great to know and see how habitat restoration can answer many of the problems we're facing related to climate change and sea level rise.
Yeah, building more seawalls and jetties isn't going to work.
Yeah, we need the biomaterial. Very great. Okay, well, I think we're about out of time. So thank you again so much, Ray. And thank you everybody who joined us this evening. Thank you again to Mercedes for interpreting for us this evening. There she is. And yes, so we'll see you all at the next one. We've got another webinar coming up in November, so keep your eye out on that one. I'll put this up really quickly as well, this last slide. This is just a reminder as well that we have monthly events with the Benny Ranch Conservancy to help restore this coastal corridor estuary area of the Santa Ana River. And much of our work revolves around water and climate action as well. So this Saturday, we will be at our normal beach cleanup site on the Newport Beach side of the river mouth. So if you can see my mouse, we set up right there, Tower 74. And again, we see this as sort of the last line of defense for garbage exiting our waterway and into the ocean, and also to help care for the endangered species of shorebirds that are nesting here, the least terns and the western snowy plovers. And it's a great time. So please come out if you can, 9 a.m. this Saturday. It's also the International Coastal Cleanup Day, so it will be a big one. We could have many people at our site. So it'll be kind of a big party, big cleanup party. And then on the third Saturday of the month, we are at Fairview Park doing our habitat restoration. And next month in October is our big native plant planting day. So it'll also be a big party. If you're available on the 21st of October, we'd love to have you out. You can get more information at this URL or by scanning that QR code. So that would be it. Thanks again, everybody, and I'll leave this slide up for just a few minutes as we all log off. Have a great night.